live. Good afternoon. My name's Roger Lewis. I think we're a few seconds early. I'm here in my house in Sweden, and Ranjan Balakumaran is his place in Paddington in London. Hi, Ranjan. How are you doing?
Hi, Roger. Very well, thank you. Looking forward to this information sharing opportunity.
Excellent. And Llyod Evans from the Spectator is due to be joining us. He's obviously delayed somewhere, and if he can join in at any point, that's great. But anyway, let's just dig in here. And
would you like to introduce yourself, Roger?
I will. So what we're all here to see is the promo video for West Ferry Printworks, a story which Ranjan and I have been following quite closely. My name's Roger Lewis. My company is called Real Estate Land and Developments Limited, and I used to be known as the king of the Docklands, and I've come back to reclaim my throne. So look out, all you people that used to compete with me. I'm back, and I'm back with a vengeance. So I'm a property developer, and London Docklands is where I made my name and made my fortune, and it's a place that I love. It's a place I put my heart and soul into. And what I'm interested in doing is building affordable homes, Ranjan, in London and across the UK. And I'm interested in getting young couples on the housing ladder, giving them opportunities that are denied to them that were available to me when I started out as a graduate surveyor in the 1980s. And the housing ladder, if you think of it in terms of 100 rungs, okay, the bottom 20 or 30 rungs are catered for, not properly. They've been neglected. The top half, the top 50 rungs, they're looked after. No problems there. Cash boxes in the sky, all the rest of it, buy to let, all of that sort of thing. But there's the intervening rungs, whether it's 30 odd rungs in the middle, and they are completely degraded, in many cases not there. And my company is specifically tasked with providing open market solutions to affordable housing in the starter home and budget family home part of the ladder, the rungs that have been basically kicked out by a combination of planning policies, both central planning policies and local planning policies, things like community infrastructure levy being misapplied as a wealth tax, and through misallocation of capital. So we can have a bash at the bankers as well, but the misallocation of capital, with the demise of things like building societies and mutual societies, all the carpet bagging that went on in the 80s and 90s. And these are institutions which provided mortgages for homes, for providing homes. And whether you wanted a starter home, a budget family home, you were able to have one of those on an affordable income. And policy is aimed towards rent seeking and supporting the private build to rent sector, the not-for-profit housing associations, the help to buy scheme. We must assume that they're all well meant, but they are shooting wide and high and low all around the target, but none of them are hitting the bullseye, Ranjan. And the West Ferry Printworks kind of, for me, provides a window into a lot of why that is in terms of this polarized debate. So let's roll this thing, because people obviously tuned in to have a look, and let's have a chat about this scheme as it plays. So here we are. This is the Robert Jenrick. Oh my God, he was shown this by Richard Desmond. Oh, and if you've tuned in because you think there might be some Asian big ones on there, you're going to be disappointed. You'll just get a beautiful bit of property here. So here we go.
So you were saying that this is a top architecture firm that's been involved in making this?
That's right, PLP Architects, and they're an international firm with a hell of a portfolio, and they describe this scheme on their own website. No one's cared to ask for a comment from them. This is actually coming down Mill Harbour now. On the left-hand side, this is Pepper Street. It's the Glengall Bridge development, the second phase. I was involved in that back in the day for Warlegged Estates. Then just on the left here, this building here, that's where the Word used to be made. There was a warehouse there. That's where I first met Lord Wahid Ali, as he is now. But he ran a company called Planet 24 in those days with Bob Geldof. Induscan Court down on the left, City Reach on the left there. And now this is basically the boundary going into the development from the north heading south. So we're actually going south-west along this boulevard here.
Is this it?
This is now the scheme coming in from that side, and this is the big public space, a beautiful park here. On the right-hand side is an affordable housing block. All on the right here, that's affordable housing, and then you have the lower density block, or the lower rise blocks, and then you have the towers. There are two of these. That's Tower 4 just on the right, and on the left there's another one which is Tower 5, which people have been complaining about. And you can see it's a beautiful park, this one. There's lots of open public space here, and it opens up the views going down now into the dock, and that's the Millwall Inner Dock there that you can see just coming up. This beautiful fountain here, that reminds me of Herrenhausen Gardens. When I was a kid, I was brought up in Germany. We used to mess about, you know, at Herrenhausen in Hanover. They had lots of.
This looks like a good spot from what I can see so far. I've never seen this video before.
Yeah, there's lots of beautiful open spaces. People will hang out here. It's very permeable. The scheme has a very low footprint. It's not overdeveloped. It's a tall scheme, and so it's got a high number of habitable rooms per hectare. But in terms of the general permeability, as we call it, of the scheme, it's absolutely excellent. You can see that in the plan here. This excellent new boulevard along here. So this now is the West Ferry Road. Okay, so Tiller Road has just gone behind us. And now on the left here, that fence is by the new secondary school, 1,200 person secondary school with a 300 pupil sixth form, 3 sports pitches, a sports hall. You know, a fantastic contribution to the general amenity and social provisions of this part of the Isle of Dogs. Then on the right here, there's a lower block here. And then behind there is the Docklands Sailing Centre. And again, lots of open space, very inviting to get people to walk in. The school is all on the left here. On the right, you have the lower rise blocks, which are around courtyards. There's a sports hall on the left here.
Is that the social housing? The lower rise?
Social housing is down there on the left.
Okay.
We'll get to that in a minute. So cafes, streetscape, more public landscaping. People will hang out here. It's a beautiful location. There's the sailing centre there. That was built with LDDC funding back in the day. I used to sail there. These are the old dockside cranes, which are all listed. Wonderful things. In fact, they're referred to by the architects of the scheme. They say that the filigree type thing of the balconies on these buildings is a sort of a nod or a hat tip to the architecture of the cranes. Beautiful walkway. See the dock there. It's a big dock. I mean, if you've never been down to Millwall Inner Dock, you should go, because it's a fantastic place to be on a lovely sunny day. When it's pissing down with rain and blowing a southwesterly, you don't really want to, but you know, it's cool. So this is walking now, coming down. This is City Reach. So it's all permeable through City Reach, and then coming up on the right, there's a really lovely little sort of intimate park area, beautiful landscaping. These trees, at Canary Wharf, they brought in trees that are built in Germany. They're 30 to 50 years old. So it's plug and play, oven ready, as Boris Johnson likes to say. They're oven ready trees. And so this is that nice plaza again. Lots of people sat out on the streetscape. I mean, I think it's wonderful. I mean, you can look at it. I can show you other schemes in Docklands that can't hold a candle to this in terms of public spaces. And public spaces are part of the planning office, planning offer of any scheme. It's part of the stakeholders' domain, if you will. And we strive as developers to provide this kind of quality. And the idea of community infrastructure levy, the infrastructure thing, the fabric of your built environment, this is infrastructure. We're looking at it, right? We're looking at it.
Just to clarify, this community infrastructure levy in the news cycle with the whole Robert Jenrick, Richard Desmond story, that's supposed to be the 40 million thing that he was seeking to avoid, according to the media story, right? And so
that's the media story. Yeah,
you've just clarified. So that was supposed to be to help the community, that money, according to the thing.
Not to help the community. Community infrastructure levy is a levy that is supposed to provide infrastructure that supports the servicing of a development. So it's things like roads, trains, bus stops, schools, health centres, creches, all of which are a part of the master plan of West Ferry.
I can see them already. Yeah, exactly. They're already here.
The trees, yeah.
No, I mean, or the school. You've shown me the school in this. So
yes. As we went in, that's it's not there. It hasn't been built because this has dragged on. This has dragged on. When people have been cork sniffing over, well, what is project viability? How does project viability works? I'm a commercial developer. I'm a free market capitalist. I'm an unabashed for-profit property developer. I can make profits building affordable homes, okay, and also making sure that there's available finance packages for my customers, right? These young couples that work hard and should be able to buy their own home and get on the housing ladder, those rungs that aren't there and aren't addressed. Okay, that's why I get very passionate about this.
What kind of income are you talking about for this couple that is your customer?
Well, average incomes in Tower Hamlets are mentioned in the Tower Hamlets expert report on the housing mix here, and it shows the average salaries in Tower Hamlets across all the wards, and you see that between about 18,000 and 40,000 is by far and away where most people's salaries are. So if you've got, say, a nurse and, say, a fireman, or a nurse and a trainee architect, a nurse and a trainee planner, I keep going on about nurses. I've got a thing about nurses, look. So, yeah. Basically, regular couples that are in work, key workers, all the rest of it, they're being forced into the private renting sector, or the what they call the London living rent type sector, as opposed to the affordable social sector. Very important sectors. They should be taken care of. Of course they should, but I believe in a home owning democracy. I think people should have that ambition, and actually condemning Londoners to saving up deposits of £139,000 until they're 39 years old. The article in the Times at the weekend, the young lady that's moved back in her parents for 2 years in the hopes of affording a deposit, 15%. The goalposts keep shifting. There's, help to buy, sure, but of course, the thing with that is it doesn't support the market around that of actually homes that are being sold by owner occupiers. It basically undercuts that.
Sure. So just to clarify, though, so this couple, this imaginary couple, so if between them they earn £45,000 to £50,000 a year, is that the type of couple that you're looking to help?
That's the kind of couple that I'm trying to help as well, and providing mortgages of between 4 and 5 times income multiples with, no nasty surprises in terms of additional fees, a competitive interest rate, properly financed, in a good way. I'm not talking about creating subprime mortgages. That's not what this is about. It's about making sure that there's an allocation of credit to people to actually be able to get a mortgage. Because basically, if someone can borrow money to build to rent stuff, right? Okay, the people paying the rent, they're buying it anyway. They're buying it for the developer. So what I'm saying, it's a commercial choice for us guys. We can choose to build affordable homes for people to buy, or we can be rent seekers and build affordable homes for them to rent. And like I say, I'm talking about between the 30th rung and the 50th rung, okay? Because you must have the safety net, which no one is allowed to fall below. That's the One Nation Tory Churchill thing, yeah. And so,
what do you mean? Are you talking about social housing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what I used to call council housing, local authority housing. I mean, time were that the police did police houses. The fire brigade had, my father worked for a thing called the Property Services Agency, and a part of his job was actually looking after what we called the married quarters, or the quarters for people in Germany, for the forces and what have you. So, I mean, that's another story of a neglected housing stock where the government hasn't done its job looking after our brave veterans, and making sure that, homes for heroes, it used to be called, not homes for rent seekers.
Now, this front here, is this all of the...
This is now a fly through, looking north. That's all the Canary Wharf skyline in the background, and the buildings in the foreground are the towers. The tallest one goes up to 50 odd stories. If you don't like tall buildings, you won't like this scheme. I happen to like tall buildings, and you can't get the sort of component of affordable housing that you want to put on these schemes. If you aspire to that, you're going to need tall buildings in London. Either that, or you invade the green belt.
Are you saying that the tall buildings are essentially subsidizing the affordable housing?
Yes.
Okay.
And the quibble that people like Councillor Wood have with that, or Mayor John Biggs, is that they should be subsidising 35% by habitable rooms and not the 21% which came out of the decision. Now, what happened? It was a three-stage negotiation in February 2019. Okay, an offer went in, a formal offer, supported by evidence, with a viability scheme offering 35% affordable housing by habitable rooms.
Just to clarify, Roger, for anyone who's not completely been following it as much as we have, Richard Desmond, who is the man behind the West Ferry scheme, has owned this land for some years, and he put in a proposal to the Greater London Authority and Tower Hamlets, who've been pushing it between each other and ultimately not making a decision. But at one point, Richard Desmond offered 35% affordable housing, and it was knocked back. Carry on.
Yeah. So there's a three-tier planning system in London. Okay. You have a thing called the National Planning Framework,
right?
National Planning Policy Framework. That's overarching for everywhere, and it sets out a wish list, if you will, of what needs to be built where, and talks about things like green belts. And
is this targets?
Targets.
Well, okay, nice idea.
I don't believe in deliverology. That's a Blairite thing, and it doesn't work.
But what is this? But you said they say stuff can, how buildings can go there and not there.
Well, yes, town planning is a complex thing. I mean, clever people deal with this stuff. People have written whole books on this stuff. People study it for several years and all the rest of it, like Mr. Quatermain, who's famously quoted as saying that this scheme is, too tall and too dense. I don't know in which sense he meant it was dense. It's not dense in terms of permeability. Patently, we've just seen that.
There's a lot of space to move around. Yeah,
that's right. So effectively, town planning is a complex thing. Okay,
Right.
and it interfaces with lots of issues to do with political economy. Okay, or human rights, really. The right to shelter is a basic human right. I think it's in the UN Charter. And basically, town planners are to do with the quality of the built environment and how interactions between people going between the built environment in urban settings through rural settings, how that all flows. That's the idea. And so it encompasses things like transport planning, public transport, private transport, aviation, air quality, public health, provision of services such as sewage. I mean, London was the first metropolis in the world in the modern age to have something called the London Building Acts, building control, and to make sure that buildings are built to a certain standard. Now, that's something known as building control now. So you have building surveyors, you have quantity surveyors, you have engineers, you have architects, you have town planners, you have public health experts. All of these people are in the teams that put together a scheme like this. Okay. In a scheme, for instance, generally speaking, 12.5% of the total construction contract. And to build this,
do you mean fees? You mean money?
Yes.
Yeah.
To build this scheme, the overall bill is about £600 million. About 12% of that is for all the professionals that are working on it. Okay.
Right.
That's just professional fees. There's a thing called preliminaries, which is all the setup. Right. And this is another thing which when people talk about 40 million quid and he saved this and he offered this, and they don't, that it's a high risk, very front heavy cost thing. And the point being that on this scheme, 600 million quid to build it, right? 12% of that is fees. A whole chunk of it is labour from all the jobs and the construction.
Has he already spent the fees money? Or is that waiting to? I mean,
a large part of it. Getting your planning permission is quite an expensive process. It's a high risk thing. Buying land without planning permission is considered very high risk, and you have to have a lot of equity capital or skin in the game to.
So Richard Desmond,
going back to your earlier question,
sorry,
Richard Desmond had a joint venture with the Telegraph Printing Works. It was called the Telegraph Printing Works, back in those days, you see, Richard started a magazine called OK Magazine, which was the best-selling magazine in the whole world. Okay, and he took on Hello, right? Brought out OK, and he became the top publisher in the world, right? Bar none. More copies than that was OK Magazine, beloved of Becks and Posh, right?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Right. So he, in publishing, he knows his onions. Now, his stable of magazines, okay, included various cycling magazines, green issue magazines, magazines to do about music. His first publication was about music. He ran a load of fanzines for the Beatles and the rock. You read his autobiography; it's all in there.
Really? Okay, I didn't know that.
Right. And so he knows about publishing and advertising, and he's obviously a good negotiator. But Northern and Shell, back in the day, right, Reg Ward rang up Richard Desmond and said, can you bring some people down for us? And, you're a good salesman. And Richard introduced G. West Travelstead to the Canary Wharf scheme, right? Back in the day, it's in his autobiography, right? So
what is that? I don't know what that is.
Canary Wharf was built by a hero of mine, a man called Paul Reichman, okay? Paul Reichman had a company called Olympia in York, okay? Right. Amongst other things, many other things, they developed the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers. That was Olympia in York built the World Trade Center in New York. Now, G. Ware Travelstead is a Texan property developer, entrepreneur, and he got interested in Canary Wharf by Richard, basically. And came over and said, right, what we want to do here is we've got to build big, true Texas fashion, right? And everybody sort of scratched their head apart from Reg Ward. And Reg was sort of, oh, yeah, I like that. Good one. Let's go for it. What happened then was G-Ware Travelstead couldn't raise the money. You know, he's an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs aren't always that popular with bankers. So what they did, they picked up the phone to Paul Reichman, who said, "Oh, yeah, okay, I can see that. We'll do a World Trade Center in you know, we can do that." And then, you know, then Docklands really took off. Now, of course, people complained about that then too. Oh, they're not jobs for us. Olympia in York put £300 million into the Jubilee line extension. My friend Robert John negotiated that for Paul. Robert was his right-hand man in London. Right. Robert, incidentally, was from the same village in Wales as my mum. That's how I know him. And I was talking to him the other day. And the thing about that is that the other thing they did, if you look at the Battle for Docklands documentary, brilliant documentary, Robert is quoted in there talking about the Jubilee line, but also talking about the interface between development and the community. It's extremely important, right? You've got to take the community with you. And that's why I don't understand this up in arms, you know, actually trying to frighten off someone that's putting their hard earned into a very risky venture. Right.
Well, my understanding is that the press coverage is not too heavy on the detail of what we've just seen, for example, or any of that. They appear to be mainly concentrating on, you know, meetings and numbers and things like that, and not talking about what's being delivered.
Yeah, but what it is if you read the expert witnesses in the planning inquiry and stuff, they're all focusing on percentages, this, percentages that, units this, units that. We're talking about homes, affordable homes. Okay. They turn up their noses sort of saying, oh, there's too much what they call intermediate homes. And intermediate homes are homes that people can have shared ownership or buy at a reasonable price, like the sort of homes that I build, right? Now, in terms of the other housing mix, there's other things that's important, like you want family units. Every scheme I've ever built, the agent has said to me at the start of the scheme, you need more one-bedders, right? If I build one-bedders, by the time I'm ready to sell them, they tell me, oh, no, you should have built three-bedders. And if I build three-bedders because they told me that, when I come to market, it's always, oh, no, you should have built all one-bedders. You see, it's this stuff isn't done in a vacuum, okay? It takes time to deliver these things, and the value of your investment can go up and can go down, folks. It's in the small print in every investment you're ever offered, and property developers, mark well, you know, the map is not the territory, yeah? The percentages and the models and all the rest of it, okay, it's a matter of opinion. Proof of the pudding is in the eating, and you have to strike when the iron's hot. We'll go for a few more metaphors here.
Okay, but hold on a second. So is what you're saying that when Desmond offered 35% and they knocked it back, and that then after
they should have run up the flags up the flagpoles. They should have put him in for a knighthood or a lordship or whatever it is, these gongs that people give away. Yeah. Okay. They should have bit his hand off, right? But they didn't. And all the delays, they all cost money. They all affect the viability. You've got to get your act together.
Yeah, well, I understand that there is currently what you might call an economic crisis going on with the prices of goods, many goods going up, that might be a supply thing. And,
well, here's a story. Goods going
up. The price of properties going down.
Yeah, it's 70 quid a bag of plaster to bosh on your wall, to skim your walls, all right? It's usually 5 quid a bag. At the moment, it's selling for 70 quid a bag.
So why is that? Is that...
Well, because of the lockdown and supply chain.
Right. So the question is, if you want to kickstart the economy and get this thing built, get this development built and people living in it, then you're probably going to have to say yes at a time when things look difficult. Are you saying that's the reason why he doesn't actually? It's his choice, but 21% is as good as he can do.
Yeah. Look, the whole CIL process and project viability process comes down to a negotiation. There's a documentary, right, called what's it called now? It's called High Rise London. The BBC did it 2017. There are 2 interviews in it. One with my friend Harry Handelsman that built. It's filmed at the time that he was topping out the Manhattan Loft Gardens, and the other one is with the guy that runs Mount Anvil, who had just finished a scheme called Dollar Bay. All right, which is on the Isle of Dogs, and Dollar Bay provides affordable homes off-site at a location called Thomas Road. What they actually say in that documentary has all of these arguments. They've been going on forever, you know, infrastructure contributions, delays, the cost of building, how much affordable do you build? Do people want to build? Do people want to live in tall buildings? High density. Okay. How does that all work? Do you provide poor doors, cash boxes in the side? There's one thing they talk about, a Russian oligarch that's bought a place in Vauxhall or something. You know, hardly anybody on there. This is all the empty homes thing. You know, they're absolutely excellent report.
An organization called Empty Homes who've done
at Empty Homes on Twitter, and their report was called Pretty Vacant, like the Sex Pistols, and a lot of good research in that. London School of Economics, they've done lots of research on this. Richard Rogers partnership, Richard Stirk partnership. They designed for Lewisham Council a Lady Wood scheme, whatever, which is like a pop-up development, modular built, whatever, in Lewisham. I've studied all these things. Okay, modular building, off-site construction, all of that. But most of the research going in there is being aimed at building to rental sector. What about my aspiring customers? What about my young couples that want to buy rather than rent and could afford to buy and rent if there was proper allocation of credit? What about that, Ranjan? What about my people?
Well, you just said that there was a TV program with an interview with 2 people, somebody from Mount Anvil and your friend Harry, who's just done the Manhattan Lofts, or had at the time. So what was that saying in relation to what you've just said? So you've just said...
Well, the penthouse at Manhattan Loft Gardens was 15 million quid or something. And Harry said, look, London isn't about rich people like me. It's about... London is about Londoners. It's about, you know, it's about the guy when we had that thing on Tower Bridge at Borough Market. Do you remember that? You know, we are Millwall, Super Millwall. And he charged the guys with a machete.
Oh, you mean, when the terror attack happened.
Yeah, and then he got sanctioned for benefits. I mean, I'm not, you know... There's a home needed for a hero right there, right? You know, and do you see what I'm saying? I mean, so the point is,
well, you're saying they're underserved, yeah.
Well, that's London, you know, and in terms of affordable housing, we've got to build it. We can't have homeless people on the street. It's ridiculous. We're whatever it is, the 5th largest economy in the world.
Well, I think there is a rich country. I think there are some people saying that if you've got people and homes, that you need fewer people.
Well,
we don't need to go there, but I'm guessing that's not your stance.
No, more the merrier, mate. More the merrier. I love people. You know, all shapes, all sizes, all creeds, all colours. It's all rock and roll to me.
But what are we going to do if there are not enough places for the people then? So what? I mean, the problem is this, as far as I know, based on what you've just said.
You build them. You stop navel gazing. You stop making housing into a political football for people to pander to. And you do what that Birmingham MP said, Sean, whatever it was. You know, you build houses. You get on and you do your job.
Okay, but you just said from the very beginning, you said, okay, I want to help young couples get on the housing ladder. You said that there's a lot of these rungs that are just used to be there and they aren't there anymore. So a combination of poor planning policy, poor lending policy from the banks, rental sector, help to buy scheme. There are these things that are there and people are making lots of money out of them, but no one is getting on the housing ladder, or very few people are. They're having to wait till they're 39 years old and save £100,000 in order to be able to get a deposit, etc. So most people will never make it. So what are you saying? Are you saying that the West Ferry Printworks is the way forward? Are you saying, can you compare the West Ferry Printworks with other things that are going on? What's the positive direction? What's the negative direction?
Okay. What you do is you stop fiddling when Rome burns. That's number one. But number two, what you have to do is you have to recognise what sites can accommodate what development and embrace the people that then want to do that. Now, I'll compete in the market for land with anyone. You know, I'll win the ball for my people, right? But, you know, I'm just one man, one developer. You know, no one company is a market. A market is lots of people interacting.
Okay.
And, you know, competition is also about cooperation, leaving something in it for the next man, right?
Well, can you give me a little of what's happening at the moment and where would you like to see it going instead?
Well,
I'm talking about current, whatever it is. So new developments are coming up. Some things are stopping new developments, and some new developments are coming through.
Got to stop with these obsessions with percentages. You've got to start thinking in terms of actual homes and people getting into homes.
Okay.
I call it bums on seats and heads on pillows is what I call it, right? Okay. And if you haven't got bums on seats or heads on pillows, you can talk all the percentages you like, but you ain't going to get off zero unless you put the foot on the pedal. You're not going to do it. So that's what I say, right? So there are lots of consented schemes, you know, schemes that have got planning permission that have been through this absolutely tortuous process. The 3-tier system, national planning framework, mayoral thing. So that's at the mayoral level, and then at the borough level, and then now down to the local community plan level, right? There's a referendum on that in Tower Hamlets on the 6th of May, 2021.
A referendum on what?
On voting in the Isle of Dogs neighbourhood plan, which is it's advisory on certain things. One thing on people saying what community infrastructure levy should be spent on. Now, there isn't really a choice because that's negotiated with the developer. It's not a wealth tax, okay? It's not even a land tax. It's a levy to make sure that people make a fair contribution to the infrastructure, which their development will actually increase the demands on.
So
right?
why is this referendum? Who benefits from the referendum?
It's more planning red tape. It's more faux pseudo public consultation. It's supposed to be subsidiarity, but it's not. It's all common purpose, thought leadership, guiding people. You know, they've made up their mind before they even start these consultations.
So they're making people feel like they've got a choice over something, but in actual fact, they really don't.
Well, most people know they haven't and don't even bother to get involved. The people who get involved are all the NIMBYs.
Right. Okay. So you've just given an example of the various layers of planning that prevent things from going forward. What's the solution?
Well, the solution is what Robert Jecknerick's been charged with. There was an excellent article in the Financial Times a couple of weeks back, which was basically saying, yes, the planning system needs to be overhauled. It needs to be streamlined. We need more zoning like in the States. Now, that doesn't mean it's a free-for-all. What it means is none of this is bloody rocket science.
What is zoning? What is zoning?
Zoning is where you have permitted development rights to do certain things in certain areas to certain standards. And it's just all put down. So you've got the certainty then, you know where you are. So you don't have political football playing going on. That's all done up front.
So
right?
Just to clarify, you just said that there was an FT article which said that in the future we ought to have more clarity, which I think is what zoning means in a way. In order to be able to get more building, more planning through, and more building done, and more housing. And
you fund properly the administration of these things. I mean, councils are always sort of saying we haven't got the resources. It's actually been semi-privatized. I mean, you can actually for your building control get a contracted out build. You know, I mean, I'm not going to go into that. It's a complex area.
But just to. So what you've said is that there was some sort of a shake-up of the planning system that appeared to have been described or advocated in the FT in a news piece? And then are you saying that Jenrick was the person behind that, or that's something that Jenrick is doing?
It's his job to deliver that, okay? And that's not popular with Whitehall, right? And it's not popular with local authorities. It's like the LDDC, that the London Docklands Development Corporation, was dreadfully unpopular with the local council. But what's there now wouldn't be there if they'd remained there. Now, my point is, okay, you sympathise really for some of these politicians, because as people get better off, they tend to become more small c conservative. You know, what do they say? Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose, right? Once someone's got something left to lose, you know, engagement, that sort of stakeholding idea takes off, right? Telling someone and shaming someone, sort of saying, you must say this and think this, or you're this, right? That kind of stick doesn't work. Carrots are much better than sticks, right?
Do you mean home ownership?
Yeah, home ownership.
Are you talking about home ownership?
Other things as well. I mean, it's like, you know, nectar in a sieve is like whatever it is, you know, the old Coleridge thing, you know, work without hope is like nectar in a sieve. You've got to have hope. You've got to have optimism. You've got to give people something to aim for, something to look forward to, you know.
Okay. But you were talking about, you were making the links between the affordable housing motivating people, the shake-up of the planning system, but you're also talking about what tied up central. You were saying Whitehall doesn't like something.
Well, they weren't very keen on all of these reforms. Are
they on the Tory manifesto, these reforms?
I don't know. I haven't read the Tory manifesto.
Yeah.
This is not party political for me. I'm an anarchist.
No. I know. Because I mean, if you're saying that Jenrick is going to do it, if you're saying he's supposed to do it, then you know, either it's common sense or someone's telling him to do it. I mean, if it's a good thing and he's supposed to do it,
it's a good idea. And in the same way that his decision on Ferry Printworks was a good decision, if I thought it was a bad decision, I'd bloody well say so. Yeah, but this is a good decision. I mean, we'll see what he does. He's just called in another one. He's called in the fire brigade station in Lambeth. That's on the papers today. £500 million scheme, London Fire Brigade, etc. That's been called in by the Secretary of State. We'll see what he does with that one.
What you mean? He's reviewing it possibly to sign off because
it's his job. I mean,
because of gridlock in local government kind of thing.
Well, no, that I mean, I only saw that today and had a read of it.
Right.
But you know, his job is to deal with things that either aren't determined or are controversial in some other way.
Well, can I just say this? I'm not pro fracking, but I know that Greg Clark and Sajid Javed, they overruled local Conservative Party at the village level in Lancashire and you know, in different places in the country, to impose the fracking. I don't know if it ever happened, but they did that more than once. So in a way, you've told me before, you know, in a way, that's what government are for. You know, you don't have to like it, but that's what they're voted in for. They've got the right to do that. You know, for example, for the
I'm categorically against fracking. I think it's the most silly thing that anyone could ever do. Yeah. You know, I think but you know, basically we're a democracy and we're supposed to argue our point of view and put forward the best arguments. That's the theory, right? And West Ferry Printworks is a really bad thing to put your best arguments forward on, because they don't apply to this. That's what I'm saying. And cork sniffing over overall percentages gets away from the point of bums on seats and heads on pillows. Those are the standards that people need to be judged by. Are we succeeding? No, we're not. Right? There are people having to save up until they're 39 years old, 15% to £139,000 to buy very expensive properties that get more and more expensive, because the segment of the market which I've made my concern is not being actually catered for. And all these holdups and all the rest of it, and the blockages in the affordable housing, means that you haven't got a proper kind of flow. You know,
a conveyor belt
in terms of a circuit of you know, people moving to smaller properties.
Yeah, properties coming onto the market.
You know, it's a constipation. We have a constipated planning system. And and the FT was quite right to point this out. But the head of the Royal Town Planning Institute said, "Oh no, it's not the system. We can deal with this." And West Ferry printers, you know, that awful Mr. Jenrick and that terrible Mr. Desmond, all this and that and the other, as if it's all their, you know, they haven't caused this problem. They're part of the solution.
Okay, right? Roger, I'd like to ask you. You have looked at various plans of various different developments, because obviously you're looking to get involved possibly in some of them. Now, question, you were saying that there's various layers. So you've got central government, the mayor in the case of London, and the actual town council in the case of Tower Hamlets. All of these people can chip in and decide and X, Y, Z.
No, they don't all chip in. It's a definite process. The mayor can say to Tower Hamlets, "I want to deal with it." They have to ask him if he wants to deal with it, and he'll either say yes or no. Okay. Then when either one of them either deals with it or doesn't deal with it, if they doesn't, the developer can then say, "Right, planning inspector, I want to have it looked at for undetermination and get a decision that way." The planning inspectorate then has the ultimate oversight of the Minister for Housing, Local Government, all that. That's Robert Jenrick, or someone else in the department will be allocated the case. And in this case, the Mayor of London said, "You can determine it. I'm not really too, you know,
I'm not getting
concerned about this. We're on the same page. You guys deal with it." And Tower Hamlets didn't. They over-egged the negotiation and all the rest of it. And then it went to the planning inspectorate, and then it was determined by Robert Jenrick. Now, the point is that planning is political, right? And because it's about a matter of opinion. Things like views from Greenwich. Is the view better or worse? I mean, you can look at the photos yourself if they would only show you them. I think it improves the view. It's certainly better than Printworks used to look. And I prefer the taller buildings to the shorter buildings. I think it looks nicer. Now, that's a matter of taste. It's an aesthetic point of view, right? I'm not saying that I'm right, right? But if you take a vote on it, which is what would happen if, you know, we didn't have the system we've got, but the final arbiter, the person who is supposed to give the final say on that, you know, the thumbs up or the thumbs down, right, is Robert Jenrick, and he did his job. And for me, he made the right decision. And all this other stuff is just so much. What's the word? It's whinging. That's what it is. It's political whinging.
Now, Roger, what about other plans? Because you said you've got the Mayor of London as well. So you've done a lot more research than I have into this. So can you tell me about, for example, another Labour council in West London, Ealing, and a project in Acton? You know, I'm sure there's lots of projects out there, but can you compare these two projects?
Okay. Well, if there was ever an overdevelopment, then that's it. I mean, it's
what
got.
Does overdevelopment mean?
Well, when Quartermain said that West Ferry Printworks is too dense, right, and it's got like a 25% footprint, 33%, whatever, that one has a 75% footprint, right?
What does that mean?
What it means is that if you've got 100 squares, it means 75 of them have got buildings on top of them, as opposed to 25 or 35 on top of them. 100 squares.
Right. So Ealing is a super dense development.
Yeah, exactly. And then density is then also calculated by the height of the buildings, so the volume of buildings on it too. And that's also got some very, very tall buildings against the backdrop of very, very little buildings. So I mean, it. You know,
Tell me more about this Ealing project.
Well, it's owned by a company called Catalyst, who are a not-for-profit housing association. They bought it off Lang's in the 80s because there was a property crash and Lang couldn't sell the apartments, so they sold them cheap to a housing association. And so it's all owned by a not-for-profit housing association, and they've got this massive planning application in less than 12 months, right? And it's got 50% full value, high value housing. And there were 300 complaints against the scheme from the local housing association. I think there were 30 complaints against West Ferry Road, West Ferry Printworks, right? So the people involved are these. What did I just say they were called?
Catalyst Housing Association.
Catalyst Housing, and their partners in the development are Mount Anvil, who are basically what's called a design and build contractor.
Yeah, you mentioned them before for some documentary. Yeah.
Their MD was interviewed about Dollar Bay and the Thomas Road housing, whatever. So anyway, they've got some experience building tall buildings, and they're quite active. For some reason, the GLA have made a loan to Mount Anvil of £50 million. Okay, that's in June. It's go on Company's House, you'll find it. It's all probably documented and everything. No, it's not specific to that. It's a general thing with a general floating charge. They'll have a charge over it if you know how finance works.
So the GLA are like a bank.
Yeah, and I just question whether the Mayor of London is the person who should be making credit allocation decisions, enabling people to do overdevelopment in Acton on social affordable housing when they turn up for sale in the Far East on a scheme called the Viridian or whatever. There's Friary Park, Acton. I mean, it's got all of the stuff that's been complained about on West Ferry Printworks that isn't happening. And because it's got this percentage, the percentage, 50% affordable housing by habitable rooms, right? There's a wider context than that. You know, I would argue, what the hell are these people doing that for?
Okay, so they're
supposed to be doing 100% affordable housing. It's nonsense.
Okay, so just to repeat back what you've told me, and you've obviously told me some of this before. So there's a site called Friary Park in the London Borough of Ealing. It used to have about 300 or 400 affordable housing units there, and now they're knocking that down, and instead they're going to build 900 and they're going to build nearly 1,000 homes.
It's 800 or 900, and it's not sure how many they will build because the later phase of it, they can go back.
They haven't decided yet.
They can go back for sloppy seconds with the planners, obviously.
Okay, so there were 300 or 400 affordable housing there before, and now they're going to build an extra 100 affordable housing, something like that. But that's 500 luxury will go up.
Yeah.
And this is a not-for-profit housing association, and they're selling them in Hong Kong.
Go on the Catalyst website, and there's a whole page. It's like a debunking page about all these rumors and conspiracy theories about what's gone on. And if you read it, you kind of think, I think they protest rather a little much. You know, it's.
Oh,
you
okay.
Know, I'm all for people making a buck. That's fine, but it should be an honest buck, and it should be as advertised on the tin. And I do question what not-for-profit housing associations are doing, being involved in open market, free market building, enabled with public money. Maybe
so you're saying that they're getting away with it because they're saying it's 50-50, and you're saying, hey, hold on, you're actually building 600.
It was Hydrick that said, it's me who decides is the Jew. All right. And these people, they're going to put yellow stars on people like me, but they're the good ones. That's what these people are like. It's fascism is what it is.
So from a planning perspective, you're saying there's good developers and bad developers, and the good developers get away with anything because they're in with the right people. Crony capitalism. Whereas other developers,
and my idea of a good development is West Ferry Printworks. That is good architecture, right? Yeah. Now, you know, Richard Desmond. It's not my business whether he's all that. The questions in the Levinson inquiry about ethics and stuff. I thought his answer was perfectly good, but everyone looks down their nose to him. He's an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur. We should be celebrating people like Richard Desmond, not denigrating them. Particularly when at 68 years of age, they're prepared to put a big chunk of their hard-earned on the line to give back. And I call that giving back. It's not taking away. I mean, it's a totally inverted story. I find it, deeply, deeply offensive.
So what you're saying is that an entrepreneur like him is being attacked. One of the things that you've said so far is that there was this planned shake-up of the planning system by Genric. Desmond is somebody who is basically trying to build something. You're saying that successful entrepreneurs are being attacked when they are going for projects that they've put years into getting off the ground. What about... so there's a couple of other things that we've talked about in the past that I'd quite like to give you the opportunity to bring in. One was to do with the gifts that the mayor of London has received. And another one was to do with the EU. The other one was to do with EU and tax farming. If you don't want to talk about these things, I perfectly understand. But, you know, I just thought I'd bring them in because...
Yeah, I mean,
if you don't want to, it's up to you.
Look, the point, I can understand why Mayor Biggs and Sadiq Khan would want to go and see West Ham play because they're the best team in the fucking world. I understand that.
I never said that. Okay.
Go you Hammers, you know. But I think Sadiq Khan supports Liverpool.
He's a Liverpool fan. Yeah.
So, you know, and I've no complaints about the guitar he got from the mayor of Chicago. You know,
where'd you look this up?
It's on all the members' interest thing. I mean, I look at those things and sort of, you know, it's a source of some amusement. You know, like Lush and the Liberal Democrats funding, the Green woman, what's she called, Caroline Lucas.
Yeah.
You know, it's just laughable. I mean, you know,
okay, hold on a second.
People entertain each other. There's nothing in it. I mean,
okay, fine. What about
a can of beans in their case, and it doesn't in the other case? Let's talk about the issues, and the serious issues are bums on seats. Repeat after me: bums on seats, heads on pillows, not percentages.
Okay, what about Brexit and tax farming for the bigger macro picture?
Well, the bigger macro picture on tax farming is we're not getting subsidiarity and this idea of city mayors. What they are is actually tax farmers.
Gatekeepers, you mean? Do you mean?
Well, you've got people like Serco and all these centralized crony capitalists, you know, that they pay themselves a fortune. They do a crap job, right? And so the local authorities are collecting fines and all of this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's a very European thing. That's how that, you know, so they can't issue credit in local countries in the EU or whatever. And they're at the mercy of the open market to raise funds that they do need in the bond market. And this is all baked into the EU cake and into the wider UN Agenda 2020.
So are you saying that there are limits?
It's a governance. It's one theory of governance, one I happen to disagree with.
So are you saying that the current system has limits on the autonomy that local government can have to grow?
I mean, if you agree with Buchanan and public choice theory, you want them to be corrupt. I mean, he says something like, basically, you don't want the zealots running the show. I mean, that's what he's. I mean, have you seen the film by Adam Curtis? I think it's called "Fuck You, Buddy" or something. Good film.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I mean, it's all of that stuff. But my view is this, right? People in local government, people in government generally, people in public service do a fantastic job, right? I love them, and they earn enough money to be able to buy their own home, right? That's my only point on this, and therefore affordable housing should also include starter homes and also budget family homes that people can afford, and the planning system, by making a binary choice and saying, right, we're going to have this type of affording house and these percentages, and it's like when Peter Mandelson said, we're perfectly cool with people being filthy rich. I mean, I'm perfectly cool with people being filthy rich. What I'm not cool with is crony capitalists eating my fucking lunch. And that's what's happening.
What, you mean they're stopping you from providing affordable housing?
They are being enabled by mates rates, deals, whatever, to make the problem worse at the same time as pretending they're solving it. and they're patently not. You know,
So
this problem hasn't happened overnight. You know, this has been going on now since you know, certainly the late 2000s, the early 2000s. I discussed this very point with Gareth Bendon and Stephen Gamester. Gareth was Eric Sorensen's right-hand man, a Whitehall man, and Stephen Gamester is a brilliant planner, and he was very senior with the planning in Docklands. They said, Roger, we're worried about all these homes that are being sold in Hong Kong. Llyod had just started the road shows and all the rest of it. And they said, we can see this becoming a problem at some point down the line. And what we want to do is make sure that, you see, I did Galleon's Reach for Fairview, right? The biggest scheme Fairview ever done. I did that land deal, right? And they build affordable homes. So brilliant company, you know. And they're not asking any favors. You know, they're not crony capitalists. They know I mean, Llyod aren't crony capitalists either. You know,
they got paid. They got paid for doing the thing they said they do. Is that what you mean? They didn't need any backhanded sort of thing.
If you look at what's happening with the larger housing associations, okay, it's like another PFI disaster waiting to happen, similar to the academy schools and all the rest of it, National Health Trusts, all of that. I mean, it's got red tape, central government people, local government people.
Well, what did you say? Pilfering. But you're talking about pilfering as well, though, aren't you?
They're playing at being entrepreneurs, and they're no fucking good at it. They don't.
When you say they're no good at it, are you talking about the people at the government level or the business people?
All of those people involved in the revolving door, okay, right? They're good at a very small portion of this, but the skill set required to deliver large-scale regeneration, okay, the actual risk part of it needs to be done by people like me, people like Richard Desmond, people, basically people that it's a high-pressure thing, right?
Can I ask you a question? So, do you remember at the beginning of 2018, a company called Carillion went down? And my understanding is that Carillion were very good at winning contracts.
Yeah, they were.
In a way, they were very good at pilfering, but when it came to delivering,
I wouldn't put it like that. Okay, the best example.
But that's they were a PFI company. Okay.
When Gordon Brown did the mobile telephone licenses.
Yeah, 2000. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
The 3G auction. Yeah.
Game theory.
Yeah.
Right. And most of those companies paid too much for their licenses, and we ended up with a worse infrastructure.
Yeah.
Right. Same thing with social housing. It's exactly the same mindset. These people think they understand business, and they you know, to do business, you have to get along with people. Doesn't mean you bribe them. What it means is people do things with you because they want to, because you're nice, right? There are nasty people that get ahead, but it's the nice. That you know, there's competition, there's cooperation. It's like that David Nowak stuff that David made his film about, you know, with the cooperators and the competitors and how
and the super cooperators. I haven't seen it, but
no, it's a brilliant thing. Martin Nowak is a statistical biologist or whatever. Brilliant research he does, and it's all of that stuff. There's no game theory in that, Ranjan. And this is the thing, you see, these people, they go and do their MBA, right? And they, you know, they go on a building site, put on a hard hat, someone shows them, they put their high vis vest on, and then they all think they're Donald fucking Trump, and they're not.
So what's next then? What's next in this journey? Because I mean, it's because this story has been in the news, and you've sort of walked me through it before it broke, that I'm starting to think about these things in these terms, which I never did. I mean, I thought about money before.
The story was the one in the FT. They got it right. All this other stuff is just fluff.
Okay, then in that case, can you jump off this anecdote? Because there was a couple of stories that I shared with you this weekend. One by Liam Halligan, and another one about two people, one who was 50, one who was 29, and their experiences borrowing money or not borrowing money to get on or to get further on in the property ladder. Can you deal with Halligan first and then the property ladder, or the other way around? Those stories. Why What's
the
good about
Halligan,
them?
the Halligan story, if you read the comments, it's pointed out in the comments, he leaves out the finance equation. And the
What
other
does he
one,
say? No, but what does Halligan? What was his point?
well, his point was
What was
about
the topic?
he mentions grasping property developers and stuff like that. I mean, it's the article itself. I'm glad it's an interesting article, but it informs you for what it doesn't say rather than what it does. And the other one, the one that appeared in the Times with the 50-year-old guy remortgaging or equity release, and the young lady who was hoping to buy her first home, moved in with her parents. That one, right? And that one, most people don't know what money is. They don't know how it works, right? In terms of credit creation and basically how banking works and stuff like that. And there's a misallocation of credit that's kind of baked into the current process.
So just to clarify, what you mean is money that should be being lent to people so that they can buy homes, that's not happening.
Yeah, banks don't take risks with their money. Entrepreneurs do, and banks, in terms of risk, I mean, banks do go bust, and lots of them are doing that at the moment, really. But that's just because they're bad bankers, and it's the same thing. I mean, there are people running the show that don't know their own business. It's as simple as that, really. There are good ones, there are bad ones. The less good ones tend to be running the show at the moment. I mean, it seems to be. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old, and policemen start looking younger and stuff. But the problems I encounter are invariably with the people that have got their little power centers and their little pinch points. They make everybody underneath them their lives misery.
Okay, so the lending's
those
not happening.
are the good people, and they're not enabled.
So how are you going to fix this?
I'll go in.
I don't mean the whole thing, but what are you? You're going in, aren't you? You're coming in. You're coming back. What's your?
I'm starting a finance company, and its working title is Loft Miles, and basically it's a sweat equity discount token. It's like a building society type thing. So that's one part of it, and the other part of it is I'm building what I call ready-made doer-uppers, where people add their own value when they move in. So it's like one of the rules of property is buy the worst house in the best street. That another rule of business is you never go bust making a profit, right? These are all little sort of aphorisms that people like me, when they've had a few too many beers, will trot out. But there's truth in all of these things. And so the point is that my focus is very simple, right? I want to build affordable housing. I'll go in and compete for land in the open market. There are more opportunities for people like me at the moment because there are quite a few balls ups to sort out, not least balls ups that have come from all this cork sniffing. And, it's got the best Section 106 agreement in the world, but there's no fucking building there.
Right.
I mean, come on.
When you say it's got the best Section 106, you mean it's been given the right to they've passed something.
Planning obligations are usually included in a deed called a Section 106 agreement, which is a legally binding agreement between the landowner, and it attaches to the land. That's why it's a deed, and with the local authority, right? So that's Section 106's. Community infrastructure levy is a levy, and basically that's embodied in a separate document. And the rules are, I mean, again, why do you have two of them? There's something called Regulation 123, which talks about mixing the funds and spending money on a pooled kind of type of idea. That's all part of what's in the mix at the moment being reformed, right? And it needs reforming. Basically, it's a system that doesn't work. It's overcomplicated, and the only people that think it's any good are the people who designed it. What they say, everyone likes the smell of their own farts, but to everyone else, it smells terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's just, it's, I don't know, it's over enthusiasm, over pessimism. not enough trust between the parties, setting up polarities and binary arguments, as opposed to really seeing what the other guy and seeing their point of view and understanding it. And by all means, I'm a big tough guy. I'll have a robust negotiation with anyone and shake hands afterwards and go and buy them a beer at the pub, right? Okay, I'm not asking for any favors, but what I'm saying is we have a system here that really is not fit for purpose. So, as Boris would say, it's not oven ready. It's a turkey that is not voting for Christmas. This one, you know what I mean?
Right.
Simple as. So that's it really.
If anybody wants to find out a bit more about this, should they be tuning in here for more, or what?
Well, then go on my website. I put a number of documents together. Most of the technical documents I've made available publicly and easy to download, because you have to go and trawl through the planning portals and you get booted out because the server times, all that sort of thing. And because all this is employed in research for all my shareholders, investors, because
you made a lot of it available.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, it's almost like an open source kind of thing. It's all available anyway. Yeah, but
you've gone and you found it, right? And so this is on your
website. I know where to look, Ranjan, and it's like it's easy to find a needle in a haystack when you know where to look. I know where to look. Okay. You don't know something until someone tells you that. Actually, what about this?
Right.
I mean, this bumper sticky waving Yabu sucks blowing raspberries nonsense. We want to sort out a problem we've got here. We've got a housing problem in Britain. We've got a shortage of affordable homes, both at the social level and also in the private ownership level. And I happen to believe that home owning democracy makes for a stronger democracy and a wealthier. You spread the wealth, right? And it's a good way of doing that. So I mean, there are lots of challenges coming up with artificial intelligence and all this sort of thing, and we've got to start thinking about these issues. But we should look at them optimistically rather than pessimistically, and we should be more conservative in a libertarian sense than authoritarian in a Stalinist sense.
As in build more, give people more of a chance to be able to have a stake in society. Is that what you mean?
Well, you've got to listen to the market signals. The signals are all over the place, but misallocation of credit is not reading the signals right, and it's actually compounding the error. I mean, it's real basic stuff. I'm not pointing fingers, but clearly there's been a fuck up. Let's sort it out. That's all I'm saying.
And do you think that the so where are the the solutions are going to come from people? I mean, the story at the moment is a legal battle as well as a political battle to be able to get something to go through that normally would either make sense or not. So there's going to be more and more of these battles, are there? Or I mean, does this stuff doesn't normally happen on the front pages? It happens kind of behind the scenes.
Well, I mean, there are celebrated cases from before, but usually it's because someone's got an axe to grind. I mean, who was leaking all of this lot? We ask ourselves. I mean, no one's saying so in public, but it seems to have been coming from the cabinet office, didn't it? So,
Sure.
I mean, they can have their dick waving contests in private. I'm not bothered about that. What I'll say in public what I think is wrong and what I think are the solutions, right? And and I'll tell my customers what I think is standing in the way of their ambitions to own a home. It's not me. It's not Richard Desmond. It's not us, right? We want to help.
Sure. Well, Roger, is there anything else that you think we need to be talking about right now?
No, I don't. I mean, it's 6:15, mate. Here, well, it's 5:15 for you. I mean, it's flown by and all the rest of it. Hopefully, Llyod will join us next time round, and we can have a chat with Llyod and
Yeah, find out what questions he's got.
Bring out some other questions and stuff. And what I will do, I'll upload that walkthrough. I'll probably put some music to it or something. And we could do a spoof. I could be Jenrick and you could be Richard, or vice versa.
I'll be Boris. Okay.
Have a bit of fun with that, wouldn't we? But,
yeah, definitely.
Like I say, it's a great scheme. It really is. I wish I'd come up with it. A brilliant team, and all the people that have worked on that should be congratulated. They've done a really good job, and this is what these people should be saying. Not all this. A lot of people work really hard on that, and I just think it's just plain ignorant not to acknowledge that.
Well, can I just say this from my side? If you hadn't told me about the fact that there was a court case a few weeks beforehand, I wouldn't have mentioned to you that I saw it in the news when I did. Obviously, it was hard to ignore at a certain point, but I remember when I first noticed it saying, oh, look, the Times have got this story talking about this, but you've told me about it. What's actually going on? And I've got to say, the front cover of this week's Private Eye, for the last 3 weeks, they've been talking about this non-stop, and yet there's no clarity. I would never have understood things from the way I do now had you not pointed this out. So I think really I have to thank you for going out of your way to point things out. I mean, in a way, you're kind of sticking up for your bit of the sector.
It's my business. I'm not doing this out of a sense of public duty or anything like that. It just so happens that
it's in the news cycle, isn't it?
Well, my customers are what I'm here to serve. And I want to build for my customers. And my customer, that anyone's watching, is young couples and also, people with young families that want to buy an affordable home, right? There's no reason why that shouldn't happen. It's a commercial choice. It's an allocation of credit choice. And it's also to do with the planning framework. And in saying that, we're going to favor this sector or that sector, to me, it looks like rent seeking and some way of, gaining additional measures of control over people. I'm for live and let live. I like people. I love life. I enjoy life. And it's much easier to do if you've got a roof over your head, and if you can buy your own home, then go for it. And I'm here to help.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Roger.
You're welcome, Ranjan.
See you next time.
Yeah, see you next time. Cheers, mate. Bums on seats, heads on pillows.
Heads on pillows.
Cheers.
Thanks again. Bye.